Now, moving on to item 2, that is the protocol on the free movement of persons and goods. On this point, Togo has been a good pupil in the sub-region. However, efforts continue to be made to ensure total and full effectiveness of this protocol. Item 3, Supplementary Act on Equal Rights Between Women and Men for Sustainable Development in the ECOWAS region. This act invites all member states to gender equality and equity in all sectors, and Togo continues to implement its community commitments in this regard. And we all know that Togo has been classified amongst the best in the region, in the sub-region, and internationally in this regard. Political and programmatic commitments in terms of gender equity and equality. This is the legal and institutional context taken in favor of gender. First, on the legal front, the bravery of reforms remains our basic law. Now, coming to the institutions, women occupy key posts in government. We have a special ministry also for gender, and in almost all decision-making bodies in the country, we note that women occupy key posts of responsibility. Special measures relating to health are taken by the government under the leadership of the president to ensure that from conception to childbirth, through various consultations, care of the newborn and schooling, the government takes care
en charge. Plusieurs programmes structurants en faveur de l'autonomisation économique de la femme sont également mis en place et nous les avons précédemment bien détaillés. Aujourd'hui, l'actualité, c'est la budgétisation sensible au genre avec en annexe à la loi de règlement le document budgétaire sensible
to the budget on this. Specific measures against high cost of living and inflation. In order to remedy the inflationary trend and strengthen resilience and assist the population, the President, His Excellency for Yasimbe, in his address to the nation on 27th April last year, at the 62nd anniversary of the accession to sovereignty of our country, decreed 4 main measures. The first measure concerns civil servants, parastatals, and retirees who will benefit or who benefited from a suspension from the month of May until the end of the year from the reimbursement of the 1-month salary advance granted to them at the end of the year. So the head of state suspended the reimbursement of this advance, and this is given to them from the beginning of the year, and this shall remain in force until further notice. The second measure has to do with the informal sector, particularly traders who operate in markets. Going forward, they will be exempted from paying market ticket taxes over the next 3 months with effect from May 2022. This measure is already in force all over the country. The third measure is that the head of state decided to cap the prices of local and imported products. The local products concerned are maize, sorghum, beans, pearl millet, and rice. With regard to vegetable oil, milk, wheat flour, and tomato concentrate, all of which are imported products, they will also be exempt from value-added tax. The fourth measure taken as a response to the high cost of living concerns women who benefit from the products of the National Fund for Inclusive Finance. They benefit from a reduction of 2 points in the interest rate in all localities and 4 points in areas that are known to be vulnerable. These measures are taken in addition to others already previously taken in the same context of the fight against the high cost of living and the cushioning of the shock caused by the rise in the price of petroleum products since March 29. Amongst other things, the suspension of the motor vehicle tax and the capping of transport fares for goods and people, subsidy of petroleum products, wheat and rice are included in this measure. Coming to the last point. Inclusion of people with disabilities. The issue of people living with disabilities and inclusion remains at the heart of the government's actions. So, in order to take into account the inclusion of people living with disabilities in all its forms, the Togolese government has integrated and continues to integrate the issue of disability into development policy strategies and programs, particularly in the government's 2020-2025 roadmap. In addition, government actions to promote and protect the rights of persons living with disabilities continues through the process of amending the law on the social protection of persons living with disabilities in Togo is currently underway. By way of conclusion, in this period of high cost of living, marked by widespread inflation, the phenomenon of terrorism and violent extremism, Togo remains concerned about the security, well-being, and togetherness of the populations. Regional integration and free movement of persons and goods are priorities for our community. Thus, the heads of state, governments, and elected representatives that we are should all invest ourselves in the achievement of this objective. Togo remains convinced of these values and spares no effort to achieve an ECOWAS of peoples. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, our respected colleague and brother from Togo. The floor is now open. Members who may want to take the floor are invited to give their names to be included on the list. Okay. Thank you. I'm guided by the parliamentary procedures that is before me. So, but since it's a wish of the parliament that we proceed to take the second report, may I now invite Ghana to take the floor.
Right Honorable Speaker, thank you for this treasured space granted my country to present its reports for the ensuing period. Mr. Speaker, our delegation is made up of 8, with me as the leader of delegation, with my predecessor, who is still a member of this delegation, Honorable Kwesi Amayo-Treme, who previously headed the delegation, my respected colleague Honorable Samson Ahi, my respected colleague Honorable Mahama Ayariga, my respected colleague Honorable Emmanuel Kwesi Bejra, my respected colleague Honorable Ladi Ayi Ayamba, my respected colleague Honorable Johnson Kwekwedu, and not the least, my respected colleague Abdul Aziz Ayamba Musa. Mr. Speaker, before I present the report, let me state that all members of the delegation made their input, and I hereby express gratitude to them for their industry, as well as the head of our secretariat, Ms. Frimpong, Jane Frimpong, for her commitment in making sure that the delegation to ECOWAS Parliament delivers on its mandate. We are forever grateful to her for her industry in assisting in putting the report together. Right Honorable Speaker, colleague members here present, I shall pray, answer department, and with your leave, to capture the entire report of Ghana as circulated, whilst I proceed to deliver the main highlights of this report. With that permission, I believe as granted, I shall proceed. Mr. Speaker, our report covers the following thematic areas. 1, political and security situation. 2, human rights situation. 3, health situation with emphasis on the evolution of the COVID-19 pandemic. And 4, status of implementation of community texts, namely, protocol relating to the community levy. 2, the protocol on free movement of persons and goods. And 3, the supplementary act on equality of rights between women and men for sustainable development in the ECOWAS region. The political situation and security situation. Mr. Speaker, colleague members of Parliament, distinguished guests, the political and security situation in Ghana has been relatively calm, despite some incidents of national security concern. These incidents include chieftaincy disputes and ethnic conflicts, threats of terrorism and violent extremism, piracy in the Gulf of Guinea, activities of secessionist groups, and political and socio-economic development. However, Mr. Speaker, the security and intelligence agencies in Ghana, in collaboration with ministries, departments, and agencies, adopted measures that helped mitigate the aforementioned threats. Threats of terrorism and violent extremism. Mr. Speaker, permit me to emphasize that although Ghana has not recorded a terrorist attack, the recent surge in terrorist activities in neighboring countries, particularly Burkina Faso, Togo, Mali, Niger, and Nigeria, places the country at risk. In the past year, the Ministry of National Security stepped up its counter-terrorism efforts to avert any terrorist attacks, particularly on the northern frontier bordering Burkina Faso, due to the prevailing security situation in that country. Reports of terrorist-related activities in Ghana were rife in 2021 and the early part of 2022. There have been recent indications of plans by terrorists and extremist groups in the Sahel region to expand their activities southwards to countries along the Gulf of Guinea. The northern part of Ghana faces the highest risk of terrorist infiltration in view of its proximity to landlocked West African countries, which are grappling with activities of terrorist and extremist groups. Their modus operandi is to recruit fighters from target countries and train SEALs. The government of Ghana, through the Ministry of National Security, continues to adopt the following measures aimed at effectively dealing with the threat of terrorism. 1. Intensification of ongoing counter-terrorism operations along the various frontiers of the country. 2. Implementation of Ghana's framework for preventing and countering terrorism and violent extremism. 3. Retooling of the various state security and intelligence agencies. And 4. Adoption of the soft option approach by expediting development and providing employment for the youth, and particularly those in vulnerable border communities. Political and socio-economic development. Right Honorable Speaker, colleague members of Parliament, the year 2022 began with a generally calm political situation. There were, however, some agitations by public sector workers over the annual minimum wage increment for 2022. There were also agitations by various labor unions over poor conditions of service, a surge in fuel prices, and the challenges in the global supply chain resulting in high import and export costs. Like many other countries across the globe, Ghana has not been spared the adverse economic impact on COVID-19 pandemic and the recent global developments, especially the Russia and Ukraine war. The government of Ghana has implemented new economic policies, including the introduction of new taxes to mobilize revenue to mitigate the dire effect of the aforementioned development on the economy. The introduction of the electronic transaction levy, popularly known as e-levy, which is a tax imposed on some electronic transactions, generated public uproar in the social and mainstream media. Although the social media campaign threatened to degenerate into widespread street protest, government succeeded in averting such incidents by engaging the citizenry and relevant stakeholders on the need for the new taxes. It must be emphasized that eventually Parliament passed the law on e-levy, and though there were speculations that the use of electronic transactions, popularly known as Momo, will reduce, records show that there hasn't been that significant reduction in the use of that system of transaction. Ghana's political and security situation continues to be peaceful, and the government of Ghana is committed to maintaining the status quo to enhance a conducive democratic environment that promotes true development for the people. The government also recognizes that the continued peace and security of Ghana will be meaningless so far as the sub-region is plagued with political instability and terrorism, among others. Against this backdrop, Ghana shall continue to contribute meaningfully to sub-regional peace and security. Mr. Speaker, our human rights situation. Ghana is a signatory to many international and regional human rights treaties, conventions and protocols. Some of these treaties, such as the Convention on the Rights of the Child, have been incorporated into the domestic laws of Ghana. More importantly, Chapter 5, which covers the fundamental human rights and freedoms of our 1992 Constitution, has broad and specific provisions for the provision, promotion, and protection of fundamental rights and freedoms of persons in the country. In addition to the court system, that is the judiciary, Chapter 18 of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana made provision for the establishment of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, and same was established in 1993 Act 456. with a broad mandate to investigate complaints of violations and abuse of rights of persons in Ghana. Generally, there has been peace and respect for human rights in Ghana. This notwithstanding, the country recorded some human rights issues such as discrimination and violence against women, abuse of child rights, and harsh prison conditions. Mr. Speaker, LGBTQI and other rights. The rights of LGBTQI plus persons has been a sensitive topic on the socio-cultural landscape of the country. Indeed, the laws of Ghana prohibit homosexuality, which is regarded as an unnatural carnal knowledge. In 2021, there were some levels of hostility and intolerance against LGBT persons in the country. This included the shutdown of an LGBT community office in Accra by the police in February. Also in May 2021, 21 LGBTI activists were arrested for attending a paralegal training program at Kodokwi, a suburb of Ho. The activists who were charged with unlawful assembly by the Ho Circuit Court were later acquitted. Currently, Mr. Speaker, although there are sufficient laws covering issues regarding this LGBTI, there is a private members bill that seeks to provide for proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family values. It proscribes and related activities, prescribe propaganda of advocacy for and promotion of LGBTQ plus and related activities, provide for the protection of and support for children, persons who are victims or accused of LGBTQ plus and related activities and other persons, and related matters. The bill was referred to an 18-member Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. The committee has subsequently commenced hearings to receive input from the public, and it must be emphasized that the committee is yet to present its final report to plenary for further consideration. Health situation in Ghana. Right Honorable Speaker, colleague members here gathered. Over the years, governments have invested in the health sector, introducing interventions and programs targeted at improving the health needs of the Ghanaian populace, with a special effort directed at monitoring and evaluating the impact of programs and activities implemented. The agenda of the ministry to attain universal health coverage provides a national blueprint for a healthy lifestyle for all people to ensure that no one is left behind, irrespective of where they live. The health sector focused on improving health infrastructure at the primary healthcare level and continue to implement a sustainable rural incentive package to motivate health personnel to accept postings to rural areas and improve health service delivery. The sector continues to develop policies that will strengthen healthcare delivery at all levels in the country. Specific healthcare policies. Mr. Speaker, over the years, Ghana health sector has evolved around several policy initiatives. The current policy document, National Health Policy 2020 and Universal Health Coverage Roadmap 2020 to 2030, are instrumental in providing strategic direction for delivery, accessible and high quality health for all people living in Ghana. These policy documents were developed to localize the globally agreed sustainable development goals. Additionally, a draft health sector medium-term development plan 2022 to 2025 linked to the vision, goals and objectives of the sector was developed. The plan is to achieve the following. 1. Consolidate the policy direction in the provision of essential services for the populace. 2. Provide for the management of clinical and public health emergencies. 3. Improve quality of care and information management. And finally, 4. Enhance efficiency in human resource performance and institutionalize reforms for sector effectiveness. Mr. Speaker, now on COVID-19 and its management thereof. Ghana adopted a whole of government and a whole of society approach to fighting the COVID-19 disease when it was first reported in the country in March 2020. The country, upon recording its first 2 cases, embarked on intensive public health action through collaboration with state and non-state actors. The objective was to minimize the spread of the disease towards attainment of the following objectives: limiting and stopping importation of cases, detecting and containing cases, slow down community spread, caring for the sick and reducing the impact of the disease on social and economic lives, and enhancing domestic capacity and self-reliance. The Ministry of Health, led by its minister, played a leading role by developing a national strategic COVID-19 response plan 2020 to 2024 with support from the World Bank Group to coordinate resources and reduce duplicity of actions. It is worth mentioning that the COVID-19 Emergency Preparedness and Response Project was implemented nationwide and contributed to improving COVID-19 prevention, detection, and response through 4 components, namely emergency COVID-19 response, strengthening multi-sector national institutions and platforms, community engagement and risk communication, and monitoring and evaluation and project management. The number of designated laboratories with COVID-19 diagnostic equipment, test kits, and reagents improved considerably. It increased from 19 in March 2021 to 63 in September 2021. All these designated laboratories could satisfactorily diagnose suspected COVID-19 cases within 24 hours. The number of treatment centers completed with ICU beds and providing services saw improvements. These treatment centers increased from 21 in March to 24 in September 2021. 80% of the designated facilities for COVID-19 were effectively monitored and supervised. Extensive education on COVID-19 protocols was successfully carried out in all the 16 administrative regions. All these regions had functional COVID-19 information centers. Result of a study conducted by the Health Promotion Division of Ghana Health Service showed that 81% of respondents had adequate knowledge about infection, prevention, and control of the disease. 83% of women interviewed had adequate knowledge in IPC. The development of COVID-19 vaccine communication strategy also aided in vaccine uptake. 47% of the population and 49% of the women surveyed were willing to take up COVID-19 vaccination. 2 EPRP-based monitoring visits were conducted in December 2020 and August 2021. The objective of these visits were to achieve the following. 1. Observe the availability of COVID-19 commodities at the implementing agencies. Monitor financial expenditure of all planned activities. Examine COVID-19 reporting system at the implementing agencies and understand operational challenges hindering the EPRP implementation. Largely, quarterly reports with integrated disease surveillance and response data were submitted on time. At least 95% success was achieved. All complaints were also resolved within 1 week of receipt at the call center and operations and emergency centers. As of 3rd June 2022, a total of 161,841 confirmed COVID-19 cases had been recorded. Out of the total number, 160,000 have recovered, with 1,445 deaths recorded. Active cases stood at 396. And Mr. Speaker, Table 1 at page 12 of this report captures the said data. Now I proceed to say and submit that the Ministry of Health, through the Food and Drugs Authority, gave an emergency use of authorization of the following vaccines in Ghana: AstraZeneca, Moderna, Pfizer, Sputnik V, and Johnson & Johnson. It is worth mentioning that Ghana became the first country to receive COVID-19 vaccine through the ECOWAS facility. A total of 600,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine from the Serum Institute of India on 24th of February 2021. Successively, the country acquired several other COVID-19 vaccines through the African Vaccine Acquisition Trust, donations from the African Union, United Kingdom, United States, the Danish government, as well as other stakeholders. As of 2nd June 2022, 15,658,751 vaccine doses had been administered. The breakdown, Mr. Speaker, with your leave, I will not emphasize, is provided at page 3, at table 3 of page 13 of this report. It must be noted, however, that 9,925,820 persons have received at least one dose of the approved vaccine, representing 43.4% of the 22.9 million people to be vaccinated. 6,599,606 persons have been fully vaccinated, constituting 28.9% of the 22.9 million people, while 783,050 persons have so far received the first booster dose. Efforts are also being made to produce vaccines locally, to store up the store numbers, reduce costs, and improve the vaccination exercise towards herd immunity. Specifically, a cabinet memo has been submitted for approval of the draft national vaccine policy and establishment of the National Vaccine Institute to coordinate production of vaccines. Mr. Speaker, colleague members, status of implementation of ECOWAS text. I submit that as at April 2022, my country, Ghana, had honored its financial commitment to ECOWAS Commission as per the provisions provided at page 14 of this report, and the details are for members to read without more. Now, protocol of free movement of persons and goods. The ECOWAS Treaty of 1975 stipulates in Article 2.2 and Article 27 of free movement of persons, right of residence and establishment. Subparagraph D of Article 2.2 of ECOWAS Treaty calls on member states to ensure the abolition of obstacles to free movement of persons, services and capital. Paragraph 1 of Article 27 confers the status of community citizenship on the citizens of member states and enjoins member states to abolish all obstacles to freedom of movement and residence within the community. It must be emphasized, Ghana has complied with these. The Ghana Immigration Service is one of the leading institutions tasked with the responsibility of implementing the protocols on free movement of persons and goods. The GIS, in compliance with the protocol on free movement of persons and goods within the Economic Community of West Africa states, ensures that the community citizens are accorded
the needed courtesies at the various points of entry and exit. For instance, there are allocations of special ECOWAS booths to facilitate the movement of community citizens at the various immigration control points. Thus, ECOWAS citizens spend less time to enter and exit Ghana. The Ghana Immigration Service has established a Migration Information Bureau officially mandated to sensitize the public on the dangers of illegal migration and encourage legal means of migration. GIS has also developed a standard operating procedure to ensure compliance. The Ghana Immigration Service has also ensured that all of its officers comply with the Code of Ethics of the service, as well as the ECOWAS Protocol of Free Movement of Persons, by paying attention to the rights and privileges of community citizens. Community citizens with dual nationality. Mr. Speaker, with pleasure and joy, I hereby emphasize in this submission that ECOWAS nationals with dual nationality no longer require visas to enter Ghana. Once they travel with both passports, the 90-day visa-free stay provision is extended to community citizens who possess additional citizenship. Previously, community citizens with dual nationality required a visa to enter Ghana. Right to residence and establishment. Mr. Speaker, ECOWAS citizens who wish to establish businesses in Ghana only need to establish immigration requirements and apply for residence permits, while other nationals who are required to apply for the residence and work permit to operate are permitted to proceed with the necessary fees, administrative fees being paid to the Ghana Immigration Service. Ghana immigration laws recognize the issuance of work permit to ECOWAS nationals who are lawfully engaged by companies and institutions in Ghana. Those community citizens who take up employment with companies and institutions secure their permit through their employers. However, there has been an amendment to the protocol AP 1/5/79 relating to free movement of persons, residence and establishment that seeks to abolish the 90-day stay limits granted to community members, the residence and work permit requirement for community members, the inclusion of ECOWAS biometric national card as travel documents. It is important to note that no member state is currently enforcing these amendments. Ghana's borders are open, but with limited COVID-19 restrictions. For instance, if one is not fully vaccinated, he or she needs to produce a 72-hour PCR negative test result to enable him or her disembark and embark. Mr. Speaker, it is important to emphasize the lack of harmonization within the sub-region. The difference in the implementation of the protocols by member states tend to create problems for both officers and committees at the borders. The protocol on free movement of persons, goods and services are expected to be implemented uniformly across the sub-region. However, it does appear that some countries have adopted different means of implementing the protocols and are thereby not adhering to the requirements. It is also important to note that member states are at different levels of economic development. Hence, movement of community citizens are mostly towards the economies that are doing well. Remedial measures taken by Ghana. The following remedial measures, Mr. Speaker, have been taken by Ghana, and I highlight them with the details for members' reading. Public education, capacity building, and harmonization. Now, Mr. Speaker, let me proceed with Supplementary Act on Equality of Rights between Women and Men and for the Sustainable Development in the ECOWAS sub-region, and I would emphasize the legal framework on gender equality. Ghana has existing legal framework, policies and projects and other interventions that promote the rights of citizens, particularly women. These legislations include the Interstate Succession Law of 1985, PNDC Law 111, the Human Trafficking Act 2005, Act 694, the Domestic Violence Act 2007, Act 732, Criminal Offences Act of 1960, Act 29, the Children's Act 1998, Act 560, Persons with Disability Act of 2006, Act 715, and the Labor Act of 2003, Act 651. Other pieces of legislation exist that abolish customary practices that are injurious to girls and women. These include the criminalization of female genital mutilation, female servitude, which is known in local language as trocosi, and harmful widowhood rights. Ghana is also a signatory to several international agreements such as the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women, and has embarked on an elaborate plan of action to empower women through advocacy, sensitization, education, and creation of new gender-oriented organizations. Mr. Speaker, I proceed to the final page of the report, which is page 24, and I submit that the Gender Ministry, which is in charge of gender, children, and social protection, continue to embark on sensitization programs in communities to intensify awareness on issues of domestic and sexual and gender-based violence and child marriage. Also, the Human Trafficking Secretariat, the Management Board, and International Organization for Migration embarked on community engagement for over 340 participants in 9 communities and islands to sensitize them on trafficking and child exploitation. The ministry intends to establish gender-based violence courts in the 6 newly created regions in Ghana. In Ghana, Mr. Speaker, it is estimated that about 78% of women between the ages of 15 to 49 do not own land. Only 8% per such estimates own land, while 4% jointly own land in Ghana. And emphasis joint ownership between husband and wife or people in civil partnership. Furthermore, about 70% of the rural folks, particularly women, till the land to earn a living. The patrilineal inheritance system in Ghana has a characteristic feature of male dominance in land ownership and control. This therefore calls for an intensified gender-sensitive program that addresses the acquisition and usage of land by women. Mr. Speaker, before I conclude, let me say that any inaccuracy in this report is not intended, and for any such inaccuracy or omission, I take full responsibility. I therefore conclude by submitting that Ghana is a committed member of ECOWAS and will continue to uphold the values of ECOWAS and contribute its quota to the realization of the ECOWAS agenda. Thank you very much, colleagues, for your kind audience. Merci beaucoup. Obrigado.
Thank you very much, our respected colleague and brother from Ghana. Nigeria has the floor now. Nigeria.
Good afternoon. Honorable Speaker, distinguished parliamentarians, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Nigerian delegation to this first ordinary session of 2022, I convey a warm greetings to you all from the government and people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is an honor to stand before you today to present Nigeria's country report, which is structured thus: political situation, security situation, human rights situation, health situation, and status of implementation of the ECOWAS text. Going with the first one, which is the political situation. From the last ordinary session till date, Nigeria has enjoyed a relatively stable political environment. This is despite the overwhelming impact of global events and insecurity on the socio-political space. The situation is projected to improve as Nigeria works towards strengthening her democracy in the 2023 general elections. The political space in Nigeria is currently charged with election-related activities. In this regard, the federal government and National Assembly of Nigeria have worked relentlessly to ensure the passage of the amended Electoral Act. This is mainly to encourage active and inclusive participation of all citizens, while also enabling free, fair, and credible general elections in the 2023 general election. The already signed amendment, which has gained popular support, guarantees, amongst other things, one, that people with disabilities would have an opportunity to actively participate in the electoral process. The Act mandates the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to take reasonable steps to ensure that this group is assisted at the polling place stations by the provision of suitable means of access and communication. Two, the improved use of technology in voting and, most importantly, transmission of election results. It is anticipated that the use of technology for transmission of election results will be put to test in the upcoming gubernatorial election in Ekiti State, which is coming up this Saturday. This gives INEC time to make reasonable adjustments to the system before the general elections coming up next year, February. As of today, the major political parties are currently conducting primaries. Of course, the major parties have determined their candidates, their presidential candidates, and other candidates for elective positions. Consequently, the socio-political space in Nigeria is focused right now on discussions and matters related to electioneering activities. The Constitution Amendment. The Nigerian National Assembly has intensified efforts in amending her 1999 Constitution to improve the economic, political, and social well-being of Nigerians. To achieve this, a total of 68 bills were considered by the federal legislature, which covered fundamental areas such as 1. Partial devolution of powers to the state government, 2. Administrative autonomy for the local government, free, compulsory, and basic education, amongst a myriad of things. In line with our federal governance system, the constitution alterations have been sent to state houses of assembly for further consideration, having been dispensed with by the federal legislature. The security situation in Nigeria. Growing insecurity is a global phenomenon that countries the world over are battling to bring under control. With increased rates of kidnappings on the highways and railways, armed robbery and incessant deadly clashes between herdsmen and farmers in the north, and the unconscionable activities of gun-wielding men in the South, there is no question that Nigeria is also experiencing an uptick in security incidents. In a brazen attack in the northwest of this country, bandits on Monday, 28 March 2022, bombed the Abuja-Kaduna rail track. In the process, destroyed a passenger train carrying an estimated 398 passengers. This unfortunate incident has reportedly led to the death of at least 8 persons and the kidnapping of about 168 others. Incidentally, on 26 March 2022, the Kaduna airport was also attacked by gunmen, which resulted in the unfortunate death of an airport personnel. But further casualty was prevented by the quick response of our military within the vicinity. In the southeast, there is continued conflict between government security forces and quote-unquote unknown gunmen that have been terrorizing the region and other law-abiding citizens. This has led to increased military presence in the region and security crackdowns to prevent a total breakdown of law and order. Unfortunately, the Southwest has not been left untouched by the ongoing assault on our collective peace, as the region recently reported the killing of scores of Christians by gunmen that invaded a Sunday mass service at Owo in Ondo State. In acknowledgement of the dire security situation, the federal government has exponentially increased the budgetary allocation to the defense and security sector by over 26% in the 2022 federal government budget. Consequently, the military has embarked on massive training of military personnel and logistics and infrastructure enhancements in renewed efforts to curb banditry and other criminal activities in the country. So we are working to take care of the situation. Update on security in the Gulf of Guinea. On a high note, the quest to keep our maritime space secured has yielded significant results. The 2021 launch and implementation of the Integrated National Maritime Security and Waterways Protection Infrastructures, the DW project, that targets insecurity in our waters, has resulted in the drastic reduction of piracy incidents in the Gulf of Guinea. The first quarter 2020 report of the International Maritime Bureau, IMB, reveals 56.25% reduction in piracy incidents in the Gulf of Guinea, as compared to the first quarter of 2021, with 7 incidents recorded in 2022 as against 16 incidents in 2021. In further recognition of Nigeria's progress in the maritime sector domain, the IMB has delisted Nigeria from its infamous red list of piracy-prone states, thus steadily taking Nigeria towards her vision of being a foremost maritime country in the region. Human rights situation. The massive humanitarian crisis that has ensued from the war in Ukraine has resulted in the displacement of thousands of our African brothers and sisters, most especially Nigerian students. It was most unfortunate that we had reports of Africans being discriminated against and prevented from leaving Ukraine and crossing into neighboring countries to safety. On receiving this unpalatable report,